The Haunted Hotel of Paris, where guests check in, but never truly leave. Paris is known as the city of lights, romance, art, beauty, but hidden behind its narrow streets and elegant facades, there are places the light never reaches. One of them is a hotel that does not appear on most maps. The hotel no one talks about, near the edge of an old Parisian district. Tucked between buildings that seem to lean away from it, stands a forgotten hotel. No sign, no name above the door, just a faded number barely visible in the stone. This is our story for today. Click like and subscribe, and let's continue. A place with a history that doesn't end. The hotel was built in the late 1800s, during a time when Paris was expanding rapidly. It was meant to house travelers, artists, and the wealthy elite. But from the beginning, something felt wrong. Guests reported doors opening on their own, footsteps in empty hallways, whispers in languages no one recognized. At first, these stories were dismissed until people started disappearing. The first recorded death. In 1897, a woman named Elise Moreau checked into the hotel for a single night. She was never seen again. Her belongings were found neatly arranged in her room, her bed untouched. The window was locked from the inside. No struggle, no explanation. The hotel staff claimed she had checked out early, but her name was never recorded again. Anywhere. Rooms that shouldn't exist. Over the years, guests complained of something strange. Hallways felt longer at night. Doors led to rooms they had never seen before. Room numbers changed. One man swore he entered room 307, only to wake up in room 113, 3 floors below. The staff denied everything. The building, they said, had never changed. The sound at 3:17 a.m. There is one detail that appears in nearly every witness account. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the hotel changes. Guests describe a low knocking inside the walls, elevators stopping between floors, a cold draft moving through locked rooms. Some hear crying, others hear laughter. All agree on one thing. The sound is coming from inside the building itself. A guest who tried to leave. In 1924, a writer named Henri Duval stayed at the hotel for 2 nights. He claimed the mirrors reflected faces that were not his own. On the second night, he ran into the street barefoot, screaming that the hotel was full of people who weren't alive. He never returned to the hotel. 3 months later, he was found dead in his apartment. His final journal entry read, "I never left the hotel. The room that was never meant to be opened." The hotel continued to operate, despite the rumors, despite the disappearances, despite the deaths that followed those who stayed too long. From the outside, it looked normal. Inside, time behaved differently. The locked room on the 4th floor. Every hotel has rules, but this one had only one rule that mattered. Never open room 418. It did not appear on any official floor plan. There was no key listed for it at the front desk, yet guests reported seeing its door, always at the end of the 4th floor hallway. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't. The night the rule was broken. In 1956, a night receptionist named Lucien Martel made a mistake that would haunt him for the rest of his life. During a stormy night, a guest approached the desk and calmly said, "My room is breathing." Lucien followed the man upstairs. The hallway was longer than it should have been. At the very end stood a door marked 418, unlocked. What was inside? Lucien later described the room in a sworn statement. It looked like a hotel room, but everything was wrong. The bed was old, the wallpaper peeling, and the air felt thick, like it had been trapped for years. The mirror was covered with fingerprints, pressed from the inside. Then Lucian heard voices, not coming from the hallway, coming from the walls. The guests who never checked out. Inside room 418, Lucian saw figures sitting on the bed. Men, women, children. They were transparent, yet solid enough to leave impressions on the mattress. They were all staring at the door, waiting. One of them turned its head slowly and spoke. "We missed checkout." The lights went out. Lucian's escape. Lucian ran down the stairs, out into the rain. He never returned to the hotel. Years later, when interviewed, he said something chilling. They weren't trapped. They were staying. Lucian died in 1971. His death certificate listed the place of death as Unknown Hotel, Paris. Mirrors that remember faces. Guests who stayed in the hotel after 1960 began reporting something new. Mirrors showed reflections that moved a second too late. Faces appeared behind them, sometimes smiling, sometimes screaming. One guest shattered the mirror in her room. Behind it was another mirror, older, cracked, with names carved into the frame. The whispering hallways. Employees avoided walking the halls alone at night. Footsteps followed them. Elevators stopped on floors that didn't exist. Room service carts rolled on their own. At exactly 3:17 a.m., every phone in the hotel rang once. When answered, only breathing. Those who return were never truly gone. For many years, the hotel faded into obscurity. No advertisements, no official listings, no online presence. Yet somehow, people still found it. The man who came back after 20 years. In 1984, a man named Julien Marchand walked into a Paris police station and made a strange request. He wanted to report himself. Julien claimed he had disappeared in 1963, 21 years earlier, after staying one night in an unnamed hotel in Paris. The officers laughed until they checked the records. Julien Marchand had indeed been reported missing in 1963, declared dead in 1970, but the man standing before them looked exactly the same as the photograph taken the day he vanished. No signs of aging, no explanation. Julien's testimony. Julien said he remembered checking into the hotel late at night. He was given a room on the 4th floor. At exactly 3:17 a.m., he woke to the sound of knocking, not on the door, inside the walls. He said the room felt smaller with every breath he took, as if the walls were slowly moving inward. Then the mirror began to fog. Words appeared on the glass, traced by unseen fingers. Stay, the hallway that wouldn't end. Julien tried to leave his room, but when he opened the door, the hallway was impossibly long, stretching far beyond what the building should allow. Doors lined both sides. Every single door was slightly open. Inside each room, he saw people standing still, watching him. Not ghosts, not alive. Something in between. He ran, and then nothing. The missing years. Julien claimed that for him, only one night passed. But when he stepped back onto the streets of Paris, the city felt wrong. Cars looked unfamiliar. People dressed differently. The hotel was gone, replaced by a blank wall. Yet he still heard it in his dreams. The knocking, the breathing, the recording from an empty room. In 1999, a paranormal research group obtained special permission to enter the hotel. One member left a tape recorder running overnight in an empty room. When they returned, the room was unchanged. But the tape, at first it recorded only silence, then soft footsteps, a chair moving, breathing. Finally, a voice whispered clearly into the microphone. Check-in is eternal. The voice did not belong to any known guest. the staff who refused to speak. Former employees were tracked down. Most refused interviews. One former cleaner agreed to speak anonymously. She said, "Some guests didn't cast reflections. Some guests didn't leave footprints. And some guests were already dead when they arrived." She quit after seeing a guest walk into room 418 and never walk out. Why the hotel still exists. City records reveal something disturbing. Every attempt to demolish the building failed. Permits vanished. Construction crews quit suddenly. One worker fell to his death after claiming the building didn't want to be touched. The hotel was left standing, unmarked, unclaimed, waiting. The hour the hotel opens. There is a reason the same time appears in every report. 3:17 a.m., not midnight, not the witching hour. Something far older, the hour that should not exist. In old Parisian records, long before the hotel was built, there are references to a phenomenon known as l'heure creuse, the hollow hour, an interval of time believed to exist between moments when the boundary between life and death thins. According to these records, souls that fail to move on sometimes become delayed, not dead, not alive, waiting. The building before the hotel. Before the hotel existed, the land served a different purpose. In the 1700s, it was home to a temporary hospice for the dying. People too sick, too poor, or too forgotten to be treated elsewhere. Records describe rows of beds, candlelit halls, and priests walking from room to room, whispering final prayers. Many died there. Some did not. Witnesses described patients who stopped breathing, yet hours later were still warm, still present, still waiting. Why the hotel was built. When the hospice was shut down, the building was sealed. Decades later, developers unknowingly built a hotel on the same foundation. They reused the walls, the floors, the layout. They unknowingly recreated a place designed not for rest, but for transition. The meaning of room 418. Room 418 was not a room. It was an overlap, a place where the hollow hour lingered longer than anywhere else in the building. Guests who entered during the wrong moment did not die. They checked in to something else. That is why they appeared unchanged. That is why mirrors remembered them. That is why they could still speak. The guests who were already dead. Former staff eventually realized something horrifying. Some guests arrived with no reflections, no warmth, no recorded past. They signed the register anyway. Their handwriting shaky, their names unfamiliar. They were not new arrivals. They were returns. The elevator that chooses. The elevator behaved strangely at night, stopping between floors, opening to darkness, closing without buttons being pressed. One technician later confessed that the elevator did not malfunction. It responded. At 3:17 a.m., it would only take certain people. Never families, never children, only those who were already close. A final confession. A retired manager, days before his death, recorded a final message. "We weren't running a hotel. We were managing a waiting room. And sometimes, the waiting never ends." The tape ended abruptly at exactly 3:17 a.m. Checkout is an illusion. Most people believe horror stories end when the truth is revealed. This one does not, because the hotel was never meant to be understood, only entered. Why people keep finding the hotel. You may wonder how a building with no name, no sign, and no listing can still receive guests. The answer is simple. The hotel does not wait to be found. It responds. People who are exhausted, people who are grieving, people who feel lost, unseen, unfinished. They don't search for the hotel. They arrive at it, always at night, always alone, always thinking they just need a place to rest. The final guest register. In 2008, a former city archivist leaked a single page from an old hotel ledger before disappearing. The page showed hundreds of names, some crossed out, some circled, some written over again and again in different handwriting. Next to certain names, one word appeared repeatedly, still waiting. At the bottom of the page, a time was written, 3:17. What happens after you leave? Those who manage to walk out of the hotel often believe they escaped, but witnesses noticed patterns. They avoid mirrors. They wake at exactly 3:17 a.m. They feel uncomfortable, in silence. Some hear knocking in places where there are no doors. Others feel watched when they lie down to sleep. A few return to the hotel without remembering how they got there. The city's quiet agreement. Paris never officially acknowledged the hotel. No plaques, no records, no warnings. Because the city learned something long ago. Trying to erase the hotel only made it appear more often, so it was left alone, allowed to exist quietly, like a scar no one touches. The final testimony. A voice recording was discovered on an abandoned phone in a hotel room that should not exist. The recording lasts only a few seconds. A tired voice whispers, "I just needed one night. I didn't know I was already late." Then a soft knock is heard, 3 times. The recording ends. Why you should not listen too closely. Stories like this do more than entertain. They remind. The hotel is not bound to stone or street. It exists wherever someone feels unfinished. Wherever someone believes rest will fix everything. Wherever someone is willing to stop moving. The last warning. If you ever find yourself walking through Paris at night, if the rain is falling softly, if you notice a building you don't remember seeing before, and a door that looks warm, quiet, and welcoming, do not enter, because once you check in, there is no record of you ever leaving. Some places don't kill you, they keep you, and they wait patiently for the next guest.